Get ready for a deep dive into the fascinating world of logic. We're going to be talking about this book, Leon's Logic. And wow, it's packed with insights about how we reason, how we make decisions, and even how different cultures think about logic.
It really is fascinating how much Leon's logic goes beyond just, the basics.
It really doesn't. Like, one of the things that really surprised me was how much it dives into that whole nature versus nurture debate when it comes to logic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we kind of all know that, our upbringing shapes how we think.
Yeah.
But this book is saying that genetics might actually play a bigger role than we realize.
Well, yeah, and there's that whole section on twin studies that I thought was really fascinating. Those researchers found that identical twins, even when they're raised in completely different environments, still show these, like, remarkably similar cognitive abilities, including, logical reasoning.
So does that mean that some people are just, like, born more logical than others?
Well, it's not quite that simple. Leon's logic emphasizes that genes are just like one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Our environment and our experiences still play a huge role in shaping how we develop and apply those logical abilities.
So it's kind of like, you might be naturally good at something.
Yeah.
But you still have to put in the time and the effort to really hone that craft.
Yeah, like imagine you're predisposed to be like a good musician, but you still got to practice to actually become a virtuoso.
Right, you're not going to be Mozart overnight.
It's the same with the logic.
So we're not just stuck with whatever logical abilities we're born with.
Nope.
We can actually, like, get better at it.
Absolutely. And that's what's so empowering about Leon's logic. It gives us a sense of agency over our own minds.
Yeah, like we can take control.
Exactly.
And improve.
Yeah.
But, it's also interesting because the book talks about how logic isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Different cultures actually have really unique approaches to logic.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I found so fascinating. For example, Leon's logic compares like Anglo-Saxon reasoning to like French or Italian reasoning. Yeah. And Anglo-Saxon cultures, especially in the U.S., they often kind of lean towards this inductive reasoning.
Inductive reasoning?
Yeah.
Remind me what that is again.
So that's when you start with specific observations and then you draw general conclusions from those observations.
Oh, okay. So it's like if I see a bunch of swans and they're all white, I might think, okay, all swans are white.
Exactly.
Even though that's not true.
Yeah, you're forming a hypothesis based on patterns that you observe.
Got it. Okay.
But in contrast, you have like French and Italian cultures, influenced by their philosophical traditions.
Right.
And they often prefer deductive reasoning.
And deductive reasoning is?
Deductive reasoning is where you start with like a general principle and then apply it to specific cases.
So if I know that like all birds have feathers and a swan is a bird, then a swan must have feathers.
Exactly. So you're applying a rule to reach a conclusion.
Got it.
And, Leon's logic even gives this hypothetical example of a business negotiation between like an American company and a French company.
Right.
And the American team, using inductive logic, they might present a lot of specific data points and examples.
Yeah, to support their proposal.
Right, exactly. Right. But the French team, favoring that deductive logic, they might start with this like broad principle or this framework and then apply it to the specifics of the deal.
So they're coming at it from completely opposite directions almost.
Yeah, and it's not that one's better than the other. It's just that they're different approaches.
Yeah, and it just makes you realize how important it is to like be aware of these cultural differences.
It's adaptable.
Especially today.
Yeah.
We're working with people from all over the world.
Exactly.
All the time.
Globally.
Yeah, you could have some serious misunderstandings.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not, like, on the same page logically.
Huge misunderstanding.
So it's not about saying, like, oh, this culture's logic is better than this culture's logic.
Right.
It's about understanding the strengths and the limitations of each approach.
And being flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And I think that's a good takeaway for our listeners.
Definitely.
Don't assume that everyone thinks the same way you do.
Right.
Be open to those different approaches.
Be open to different approaches, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And be willing to adapt your own reasoning style.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Right, because sometimes inductive reasoning might be better and sometimes deductive reasoning might be better.
It's really making me rethink how I approach discussions and arguments and things like that.
That's what Leon's logic is all about.
Yeah.
Making us more aware.
of how our minds work.
Totally.
And how logic shapes our interactions.
And speaking of shaping our interactions,
yeah.
I'm curious about how personal experiences factor into all of this.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about, cultural differences, but what about our individual?
Right, like our individual journey.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how does that play a role?
Well, Leon's logic actually gives this really compelling example to kind of illustrate this point.
Okay.
Remember Bill Gates?
Who doesn't?
Well, the book points out that, his early access to computers back in the 1960s, which was like incredibly rare at the time,
right,
really had a significant impact on his later success in the tech world.
I can see that.
It suggests that those formative experiences, those opportunities to engage with technology at such a young age really played a crucial role in shaping his logical thinking and problem-solving abilities.
Yeah, it's like those early experiences kind of gave him this
unique perspective and a different way of approaching.
A different way of thinking, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is a good reminder that our individual experiences, even those seemingly small ones, can have like a profound impact on how our minds develop.
On how our minds develop, exactly.
Yeah, and how we approach logic.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established that logic is this complex interplay of nature and nurture and personal experiences.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's not just about being smart.
Right.
It's about understanding how all of these factors shape our reasoning abilities.
Exactly.
But let's zoom out a bit. Leon's logic also takes us on this kind of whirlwind tour of logic across cultures and throughout history.
Yeah, it does. It's like this crash course in the evolution of logical thought.
Okay. I'm ready for the ride.
Okay.
What are some of the highlights?
Well, one of the most striking comparisons, I think, is between Eastern and Western philosophical traditions. Eastern thought, particularly in cultures that are influenced by Confucianism and Taoism, tends to be much more holistic. They embrace this interconnectedness of things, and they're often much more accepting of contradictions.
So it's not about finding like the one right answer.
Right.
It's about seeing the bigger picture and how all these different ideas kind of relate to each other.
Yeah, a different way of thinking about truth and logic.
Okay.
In contrast, you have Western thought, which was largely influenced by the ancient Greeks.
Right.
And it tends to be much more analytical and focused on consistency.
So Western thought is more about like breaking things down, analyzing the parts, looking for these clear,
consistent answers.
Yeah, consistent answers.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, of course, these are very broad generalizations.
Right.
There are many exceptions.
Right, of course.
And nuances within both Eastern and Western thought.
Yeah.
But Leon's logic is using this comparison to highlight how these cultural and philosophical influences can really shape our fundamental understanding of logic.
It's so fascinating to think about how different cultures have just developed such different ways of thinking.
It is, yeah.
Like, it makes you realize that logic isn't this universal, absolute thing.
Yeah.
It's been shaped and molded by these different perspectives.
Like different perspectives throughout history, exactly.
Throughout history, yeah. Okay, but I have to ask, how does all of this theoretical stuff about logic actually play out in our everyday lives?
Yeah.
Like, how does knowing about cultural differences or Eastern versus Western thought actually help us navigate the real world?
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Exactly.
That's what we want to know.
Yeah. How does this all translate into something useful?
Well, first of all, I think it makes us more aware of our own biases.
Okay.
And once you realize that your approach to logic might be influenced by your culture or by your upbringing, you can start to question your assumptions.
Okay.
And be more open to different perspectives.
Right.
And that's essential for effective communication, problem-solving, decision-making.
So it's like having this metacognitive awareness of your own thinking processes.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I'm approaching this from a very Western analytical perspective.
Yeah.
Is that really the most effective way to think about this problem?
Right.
Or should I try to look at it from a different angle?
Exactly. You become more flexible and adaptable in your thinking.
I like that I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious about specific examples. Like, how does this actually play out in real-world situations?
Okay, so imagine you're working on a team project.
Okay.
And you're trying to come up with a solution to a complex problem.
Yeah.
If everyone on that team comes from similar backgrounds and has really similar approaches to logic, you might get stuck in a rut.
Oh.
You might all be approaching the problem
Right.
from the same angle,
Yeah.
and you might be missing out on potential solutions.
Right.
But if you have a team with diverse perspectives
Yeah.
and different approaches to logic,
Right.
you're more likely to generate these creative ideas.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like having a toolkit with a variety of tools.
Exactly.
You wouldn't use a hammer for every job.
Right. You need the right tool for the job.
And that's real cool. Yeah.
And it's the same with logic.
Okay, so it's about having a range of logical approaches
Right.
at your disposal and knowing when to use which one.
Exactly.
This is really making me rethink how I approach
Yeah.
teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah, it's about understanding those different approaches and how they can work together.
But what about individual decision-making?
Yeah.
How does all this logic stuff help us make better choices?
So one practical tool that Leon's logic introduces,
Oh,
is
shoot.
the concept of logic models.
Logic models.
Logic models, yeah.
What are those?
So it's basically a way of visually mapping out your reasoning process
Okay.
for a particular decision or a problem.
So you're literally drawing out the steps of your logic.
Yeah, it's like creating a flow chart
Wow.
of your thought process.
Okay.
So let's say you're facing this really tough decision,
Yeah.
like maybe you're considering a career change.
Ooh, that's relatable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would start by identifying your assumptions.
Okay.
What do you believe to be true about yourself,
Right.
about the job market, about your skills?
Okay.
And then you outline the actions you're considering.
Mhm.
So, applying for new jobs, maybe taking some courses, networking, and so forth.
Okay.
And then you map out how each action is supposed to lead to a specific outcome,
Okay.
like landing a job interview or gaining new qualifications.
So it's like creating a roadmap.
It is like a roadmap
Yeah.
for your decision.
Yeah. And by having that visual representation,
Yeah.
you can actually spot any gaps or inconsistencies
Okay.
in your law. So are your assumptions valid?
Right. Are the actions you're taking actually aligned
Yeah.
with that desired outcome?
I can see how this would be helpful for like big decisions.
Yeah.
Like a career change.
Yeah, right.
But could you use it for smaller everyday choices too?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
It's really just about
That is
becoming
more-
more conscious of your thought process.
Okay.
So let's say you're trying to decide whether to buy a new gadget.
Yeah.
A simple logic model can actually help you weigh the pros and cons.
Right.
Consider your budget
Uh-huh.
and determine if that purchase really aligns with your needs and values.
So it's not just about making the right decision.
Right.
It's about making a more informed decision.
Yeah.
One that's based on clear,
Exactly.
logical reasoning.
And that act of creating the logic model, even if it's a simple one,
Uh-huh.
it forces you to question those assumptions
Okay.
and articulate your reasoning.
So like a good mental exercise.
It is.
Okay. I'm definitely going to start using logic models.
Yeah. I think you'll find them really helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like a great way to kind of boost my
Yeah.
decision-making skills.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's not forget those logical fallacies
Right.
that we touched on earlier.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky fallacies.
Yeah, because those seem like real pitfalls.
They are. They're like these tricks of the mind
Well,
that
yeah.
can lead even the most intelligent people astray.
And Leon's logic points out that they're everywhere.
They are. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's not just in political debates
Right.
or online arguments, but in everyday conversations too.
All the time.
Yeah.
And we often don't even realize we're using them.
Oh, that's scary.
I know, it's scary.
Or that we're being influenced by them.
Yeah, remember that bandwagon fallacy we talked about?
Yeah, the idea that something must be true
Yeah,
just because a lot of people believe it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, everyone's buying this new cryptocurrency,
Right.
so it must be a good investment.
Or all my friends are going to this party,
Right.
so it must be awesome.
Exactly. And the fallacy there is assuming that popularity
Right.
equals validity or value.
Yeah.
The crowd could be wrong.
Right. And often is.
It often is.
Yeah, history is full of examples of that.
Yeah. So it's a good reminder to always think for ourselves.
Yeah.
And not just blindly follow the herd.
What are some other fallacies that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, there's the appeal to authority fallacy,
Yeah.
where someone tries to win an argument by citing an expert
Right.
or an authority figure, even if that person's expertise is totally irrelevant.
Oh, I see that all the time.
Yeah.
Like when celebrities endorse products
Yes.
that they clearly know nothing about.
Just because someone's famous doesn't make them an expert on everything.
Yeah, or like when a politician cites a scientist
Right.
to support their economic policy.
Exactly.
That scientist may be brilliant,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they know anything about economics.
It's a really sneaky way to make an argument seem more credible than it is.
Yeah. Are there any fallacies that we might use unintentionally?
Well, yeah, definitely.
Even when we're trying to be logical.
Even when we're trying to be logical.
Yeah.
A really common one is the false dilemma fallacy.
Okay.
And that's where we present only two options when there might be many other possibilities.
Okay.
So, like, let's say someone says, you're either with us or you're against us.
Yeah.
That statement is creating a false dichotomy, implying that there's no middle ground or alternative perspective.
And that's so common in, like, heated arguments or political debates.
All the time. It's a way to shut down discussion and force people to choose sides.
Yeah.
But in reality, most issues are complex and nuanced. There's a range of perspectives and potential solutions.
So how can we avoid falling into that trap ourselves?
Well, I think it's about being mindful of our language and consciously looking for those alternative perspectives.
Yeah. So when you hear someone present a limited set of options, ask yourself, are these really the only possibilities?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there other ways to approach this issue?
Exactly.
It's like expanding your field of vision.
It is.
And realizing there's more to the picture.
More to the picture, than
what you initially see.
For sure.
Okay, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
What about, like, the real-world consequences of logical fallacies?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to make a bad decision because we fell for a fallacy.
Right.
But can these flawed ways of thinking actually have, like, a wider impact?
Leon's logic argues that they can be a major obstacle to progress, both on a personal and societal level.
How so?
Well, think about it. If people are making decisions based on false assumptions or emotional appeals or faulty reasoning, it's going to lead to all sorts of problems. It can undermine effective problem solving, lead to conflict and division, and even create barriers to innovation.
Can you give me, like, a concrete example?
Sure. Let's take the issue of climate change.
Okay.
You know, there's overwhelming scientific consensus that human activity is contributing to climate change.
Yeah.
However, some individuals and groups deny this reality, and they use logical fallacies and misinformation to support their claims.
Yeah, they might cherry-pick data or attack the credibility of scientists.
Exactly.
Or use slippery slope arguments to claim that, you know, addressing climate change is going to destroy the economy.
And those fallacious arguments can have real consequences. They can delay action on critical issues, spread fear and distrust, and even lead to policies that are harmful to the environment and public health.
So it's not just about these abstract concepts anymore. These logical fallacies really have an impact on the world around us.
Yeah, and it highlights why critical thinking skills are so important.
Yeah.
You know, Leon's logic emphasizes that we can't just passively absorb information. We need to actively engage with it, question our assumptions, and be wary of those sneaky fallacies that can really warp our perceptions.
It's empowering to know that we have the ability to kind of defend ourselves.
It is empowering.
Against bad logic.
Yes.
But it also feels like a big responsibility.
It is a big responsibility.
But luckily, Leon's logic doesn't just leave us with, like, a warning.
No, it doesn't.
About the dangers of flawed logic.
Yeah.
It also gives us advice on how to actually sharpen our minds. And improve our reasoning skills.
How to get better at this whole logic thing.
Yeah. Okay, how do we do that?
Well, one strategy is to formally study logic.
Okay.
You know, there are courses and books and online resources that can teach you the principles of sound reasoning and argumentation.
So it's like giving your brain a workout.
It is like a mental workout.
Okay, what if I'm not ready to sign up for a logic class?
Okay.
Are there other ways to kind of boost my logic skills?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Think of it like cross-training for your mind.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, engage in activities that challenge you to think critically and strategically.
Like what?
Puzzles.
Okay.
Sudoku, crosswords, logic puzzles. They all force you to think in the structured way, identify patterns, and make deductions.
Okay.
They're like these little fun logic workouts.
I love a good brain teaser.
Yeah.
What else?
Board games.
Oh?
Games like chess or checkers or Go.
Yeah?
They're all about strategy planning, anticipating your opponent's moves. They're great for honing those logical thinking skills.
I never thought of board games as logic training.
They are.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to think several steps ahead and consider different possibilities.
Exactly.
Okay, what other activities?
Don't underestimate the power of creative pursuits. Things like drawing, painting, writing, playing music. They can all enhance your cognitive flexibility and boost those problem-solving skills.
So it's not just about logic in the traditional sense.
Right.
It's about engaging different parts of your brain.
Different parts of your brain.
Keeping your mind
sharp.
Agile.
Yeah.
Adaptable.
Exactly.
I like that. And you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the best way to improve your own logic is to engage with people who think differently than you do.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to step outside of your own mental bubble.
Right.
And consider those alternative viewpoints.
Yeah. And you might be surprised by, like,
you might be.
The insights that you gain or the flaws in your own thinking.
Absolutely.
You uncover.
It's like this friendly mental sparring match.
Yeah.
You're testing your ideas against someone else's logic, and you're sharpening your skills in the process.
It's about embracing intellectual humility.
Yes.
And recognizing that we all have
blind spots.
Blind spots and biases. And the more willing we are to engage in these debates and challenge our assumptions, the better our logic will become.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on the power of conversation and collaboration.
Me too.
Yeah, it's not just about winning arguments. It's about
learning and growing.
Learning and growing together.
Yeah, Leon's logic reminds us that logic isn't this solitary pursuit.
Right.
It's this collaborative endeavor that thrives on diverse perspectives.
Exactly.
Respectful debate.
Yes.
And a willingness to challenge our assumptions.
It's like we're all part of this giant logic puzzle.
We are.
Yeah. And we need each other's help to kind of find the solution.
Exactly.
But before we get too carried away with metaphors, we're nearing the end of this part of our deep dive.
Right.
What's the key takeaway so far?
Yeah.
I would say the key takeaway is that logic is not a fixed trait.
Okay.
It's a skill that can be developed and refined through practice engagement.
Okay.
And a willingness to embrace those diverse perspectives.
I like that.
Yeah.
So by understanding those principles of logic, being aware of those common fallacies, and actively challenging our assumptions, we can become more effective thinkers, better decision makers,
absolutely,
and more engaged citizens.
I agree.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to be more logical thinkers.
We do.
But before we wrap up,
yeah,
what's next on our logic adventure?
Well, in the next part of our deep dive,
okay,
we're going to explore the profound implications of logic for the future.
Ooh.
So we'll delve into the role of logic in navigating the ethical dilemmas of all these emerging technologies.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about a world increasingly driven by data and algorithms.
Right.
And we're going to ponder the very nature of intelligence itself.
Okay, I can't wait.
Give me a good one.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Leon's logic.
Yeah.
Last time we were talking about how logic is shaped by, like, nature, nurture, even our personal experiences.
And man, fascinating stuff.
It is. And we even got a little glimpse into how different cultures throughout history have kind of viewed logic. But I want to get a bit more hands-on, you know.
Yeah.
Can we circle back to those logic models?
Sure.
They sounded like a really cool tool to help us make better decisions.
Yeah.
But I could use a little bit more clarity on, like, how they actually work.
Yeah. So logic models, they can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And they're actually pretty simple to use.
Okay.
It's essentially about, you know, creating a visual representation of your thought process for a particular decision or problem.
So it's not just about, like, thinking logically.
Yeah.
It's about actually drawing it out.
It is. It's about drawing it out. Yeah, it forces you to slow down and examine each step of your reasoning.
Okay.
So imagine you're facing a really tough decision. Maybe you're considering a career change.
Ooh. Relatable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you start by identifying your assumptions.
Okay.
What do you believe to be true about yourself?
Okay.
About the job market, your skills, and so on.
Okay.
Then you outline the actions that you're considering.
Okay.
So things like applying for new jobs, taking courses, networking, that kind of thing. And then you map out how each action is supposed to lead to a specific outcome.
Okay.
Like landing a job interview or gaining new qualifications.
So it's like creating a roadmap.
It is like creating a roadmap.
For your decision.
With each step clearly laid out.
I like that. And by having that visual representation, you can spot any gaps or inconsistencies in your logic.
Exactly. Are your assumptions valid?
Right.
Are the actions that you're taking truly aligned with that desired outcome?
Okay. And this would be helpful for, like, big decisions.
Yes.
Like a career change. But could you use it for smaller everyday choices too?
You absolutely can. Okay. The scale can really vary. Yeah. You know, it's really just about becoming more conscious of your thought process.
Okay.
So let's say you're trying to decide whether to buy a new gadget.
Yeah.
A simple logic model can help you weigh the pros and cons.
Okay.
Consider your budget
Mm-hmm.
and determine if that purchase really aligns with your needs and values.
So it's not just about making like the right decision.
Right.
It's about making a more informed decision.
Exactly, one that's based on clear,
Yes.
logical reasoning.
Yeah, and that act of creating the logic model,
Yeah.
even if it's a simple one,
Even a simple one.
it forces you to question your assumptions
Yes.
and articulate your reasoning.
It does.
So it's like giving your thoughts a checkup.
It is.
Okay, I'm sold.
Uh.
I'm just using logic models.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, it sounds like a great way to boost my decision-making skills.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's not forget about those logical fallacies that we
Yeah.
touched on earlier.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky fallacies.
Yeah, because those seem like real pitfalls that we need to watch out for.
They're like these deceptive tricks of the mind,
Right.
that can lead us astray even when we're trying to be logical.
And Leon's logic points out that they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Not just in, political debates or online arguments,
Right.
but in everyday conversations too.
All the time.
Yeah, and we often don't even realize we're using them
Yeah, we don't even realize it.
or being influenced by them.
Exactly. Remember the bandwagon fallacy we talked about earlier?
Yeah, the one where like something must be true or good
Yeah,
just because a lot of people believe it.
exactly. Like, oh, everyone's buying this new cryptocurrency, so it
Oh.
must be a good investment.
Or all my friends are going to this party,
Right.
so it must be awesome.
Exactly. And the fallacy there is assuming that popularity
Yeah.
equals validity or value.
Right.
But the crowd could be wrong.
And often is.
It often is. Yeah, history's full of examples.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder to think for ourselves
Yeah.
and not just blindly follow the herd.
Okay, so what are some other fallacies
Okay.
that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, there's the appeal to authority fallacy.
Yeah.
That's when someone tries to win an argument by citing an expert or an authority figure,
Yeah.
even if that person's expertise is irrelevant.
Oh, I see that all the time.
You do?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when a celebrity endorses a product
Exactly.
that they clearly know nothing about.
Right. Just because they're famous
Yeah,
doesn't make them an expert on everything.
right. Or when a politician cites a scientist
Right.
to support their economic policy,
Exactly.
that scientist may be brilliant.
Yeah, but they might not know anything
Yeah.
about economic policy.
Yeah. So are there any fallacies that we might use unintentionally,
Oh, yeah. Tons of them.
even when we're trying to be logical?
Especially when we're trying to be logical.
Yeah.
One really common one is the false dilemma fallacy.
Okay.
And that's where we present only two options, when in reality, there might be many more possibilities.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's say someone says, you're either with us or against us.
Okay. Yeah.
That statement creates a false dichotomy, you see?
Okay.
It implies that there's no middle ground,
Right.
no alternative perspective.
And that's so common.
It is so
In
common.
like heated arguments or political debates.
All the time. It's a way to shut down discussion
Yeah.
and force people to choose sides.
Right.
But the reality is, most issues are complex
Right.
and nuanced.
Yeah. There's a range of perspectives and potential solutions.
Exactly.
So how can we avoid falling into that trap?
I think it's about being mindful of our language
Okay.
and consciously looking for those alternative perspectives.
Okay. So when you hear someone present a limited set of options,
Yeah.
ask yourself, are these really the only possibilities?
Right. Are there other ways to approach this issue?
It's like expanding our field of vision
It is.
and realizing there's more to the picture
There's more to the picture
than we initially see.
than we initially see.
Okay. But I'm curious.
Yeah.
What about like the real world consequences
Right.
of logical fallacy?
Of logical fallacies, yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to make a bad decision,
Yeah.
because we fell for a fallacy.
Right.
But can these flawed ways of thinking actually have like a wider impact?
Oh, absolutely. Leon's logic argues that they can be a major obstacle to progress, both on a personal and societal level.
Okay, how so?
Well, if people are making decisions based on false assumptions
Right.
or emotional appeals
Yeah.
or faulty reasoning,
Right.
it's going to lead to problems.
Right.
It can undermine problem solving,
Oh.
lead to conflict and division,
Yeah.
and even create barriers to innovation.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure, let's
Yeah.
take the issue of climate change.
Okay.
There's overwhelming scientific consensus that human activity is contributing to climate change.
Yeah.
However, some individuals and groups deny this reality
Right.
And they use logical fallacies and misinformation to support their claims.
Yeah, I've seen that they'll like cherry pick data
Exactly.
or attack the credibility of scientists.
Right.
Or use like slippery slope arguments to claim that addressing climate change is going to like destroy the economy.
Exactly. And those fallacious arguments can have real consequences.
Right.
They can delay action on critical issues, spread fear and distrust, and even lead to policies that are harmful to the environment and public health.
So it's not just about these abstract concepts anymore.
No, it's not.
These logical fallacies really have an impact on the world around us.
They do, and it highlights why critical thinking skills are so important.
Right.
Leon's logic really emphasizes that we can't just passively absorb information.
Yeah, we have to.
We need to actively engage with it.
Yeah.
Question our assumptions. Be wary of those sneaky fallacies that can warp our perception.
It's empowering to realize that we have the ability to kind of defend ourselves against bad logic.
Yes.
But it also feels like a big responsibility.
It is a big responsibility.
But luckily, Leon's logic doesn't just leave us with a warning.
No, it doesn't.
About the dangers of flawed logic.
Yeah.
It also offers advice on how to actually sharpen our minds.
It does.
And improve our reasoning skills.
How to get better at this whole logic thing.
Yeah. Okay, how do we do that?
Well, one strategy is to formally study logic.
Okay.
You know, there are courses and books and online resources that can teach you the principles of sound reasoning and argumentation.
So it's like giving your brain a workout.
It's like a mental workout.
Okay, but what if I'm not ready to sign up for a logic class?
Okay.
Are there other ways to kind of boost my logic skills?
Oh, yeah. Think of it like cross-training for your mind.
Okay, I like that.
Engage in activities that challenge you to think critically and strategically.
Like what? Puzzles?
Puzzles. So Sudoku, crosswords, logic puzzles. They all force you to think in a structured way.
Yeah.
Identify patterns, make deductions.
Okay.
They're like these little fun logic workouts you can do anywhere.
Yeah, I love a good brain teaser.
Me too.
What else?
Board games.
Board games.
Okay.
Games like chess checkers. Go.
Yeah.
They're all about strategy planning.
Yeah.
Anticipating your opponent's moves.
Right.
They're great for honing those logical thinking and decision-making skills.
I never thought of board games as logic training.
They are.
But it makes sense. You have to think several steps ahead.
You do.
Consider different possibilities.
Exactly.
Okay, what other activities?
Don't underestimate the power of creative pursuits.
Okay.
Things like drawing, painting, writing, playing music.
Okay.
They can all enhance your cognitive flexibility and boost those problem-solving skills.
So it's not just about logic in the traditional sense.
Right.
It's about engaging different parts of your brain.
Different parts of your brain, yeah.
And keeping your mind agile and adaptable. Keeping your mind sharp. Exactly.
I like that. And you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the best way to improve your own logic is to actually engage with people who think differently than you.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to step outside of your own mental bubble.
Yeah.
And consider alternative viewpoints.
Right. And you might be surprised by the insights that you gain.
You might.
Or like the flaws in your own thinking.
Absolutely.
You uncover.
It's like this friendly Muggle sparring match, you know?
Yeah.
You're testing your ideas against someone else's logic.
Right.
And you're sharpening your skills in the process.
It's about embracing intellectual humility.
Yes, it is.
And recognizing that we all have blind spots.
We all have blind spots.
And biases.
And biases.
Yeah, and the more willing we are to kind of engage in these debates and challenge our assumptions.
Yeah, the better our logic will become.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on like the power of conversation and collaboration.
It is powerful.
Yeah, it's not just about winning arguments.
No.
It's about learning and growing together.
Leon's logic reminds us that logic isn't this solitary pursuit.
Right.
It's this collaborative endeavor, you know?
Yeah.
It thrives on diverse perspectives.
Yeah.
A respectful debate and a willingness to challenge our assumptions.
It's like we're all part of this giant logic puzzle.
We are.
And we need each other's help.
Yeah.
To kind of find the solution.
To find the solution, exactly.
Okay, but before we get too carried away with the metaphors, we are nearing the end of this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
What would you say is the key takeaway so far?
I would say that logic is not a fixed trait.
Yep.
It's a skill that can be developed and refined through practice, engagement, and a willingness to embrace those diverse perspectives.
I like that.
Yeah. So by understanding the principles of logic, being aware of common fallacies, and actively challenging our assumptions, we can become more effective thinkers.
Yes.
better decision makers,
Yes.
and more engaged citizens.
That's a powerful message.
It is. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to be more logical thinkers.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
what's next on our logic adventure?
Okay, so in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore the profound implications of logic for the future.
Ooh.
So we'll delve into the role of logic in navigating those ethical dilemmas of all these emerging technologies.
Right.
We're talking about a world increasingly driven by data and algorithms.
Right.
And we're going to ponder the very nature of intelligence itself.
I can't wait.
It's going to be good.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Right.
We've been on this logic journey, talking about how it's shaped by our experiences, how different cultures have thought about it throughout history.
Right.
We've even learned how to spot those pesky logical fallacies.
Those sneaky fallacies.
Yeah, those sneaky ones.
Yeah.
But now I kind of want to look ahead.
Okay.
Leon's logic isn't just about analyzing the past.
Right.
It's really making you think about the future.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to technology.
That's right. Yeah, it really challenges us to think about how logic will play this crucial role in the world to come.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I think about technology, I usually think about like creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
But Leon's logic really makes you realize that logic is just as important.
It is.
Maybe even more so.
Yeah. Think about the rise of AI.
Okay, yeah.
AI systems are basically these complex algorithms that are designed to mimic human intelligence.
Yeah.
And those algorithms are based on logic.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does it affect us? Like, in a practical way?
Well, AI is already being used in a ton of different applications.
It's everywhere.
From self-driving cars to medical diagnosis to even financial trading.
And as AI systems become more sophisticated, they're going to be making decisions that have like a huge impact on our lives.
Huge impact. And that's where things get really interesting. Leon's logic is saying that we need to be really careful about how we design and implement AI systems.
Right.
We have to make sure that the logic they're based on is sound, that it's taking ethical considerations into account.
Right.
And that it doesn't lead to any like unintended consequences.
It's almost like we're creating a new species of like logical beings.
That's a great way to put it.
And we need to teach them right from wrong.
Yeah, and it highlights the importance of collaboration.
Right.
We need philosophers, ethicists, social scientists, experts in logic, all working together.
Yeah, to make sure that AI is used responsibly.
Exactly.
It sounds like logic is becoming even more important in this like technological age.
It is.
It's not just a tool for,
right.
philosophers and mathematicians anymore.
No, it's for everyone.
Yeah, it's essential for anyone who really wants to understand and shape the future.
Yeah, Leon's logic emphasizes that we all need to become more logic savvy, regardless of what we do, our background.
It's about developing those critical thinking skills.
Yes, sir.
Being aware of our own biases, being able to have like constructive debates about these complex issues.
Exactly. And those skills are so essential for navigating this world.
Right.
That's becoming more complex and technology driven every day.
But it's not just about AI, right?
Right.
The book also talks about other emerging technologies.
It does.
That raise like ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, like genetic engineering.
Okay.
As we gain this deeper understanding of the human genome.
Yeah.
And we develop these tools to manipulate genes.
Right.
We're faced with some really profound questions.
Yeah, like should we even be using these technologies to like enhance human capabilities?
Right. Should we be playing God,
And if so, like, where do we draw the line?
Exactly. Where's the line?
What are the risks?
Yeah. What are the risks and benefits?
Right.
And these aren't just scientific questions.
Right.
These are ethical questions that require really careful, logical reasoning.
Wow. It's like we're playing with the building blocks of life.
We are. And it really highlights the importance of having this strong ethical framework to guide our decisions.
Right.
And Leon's logic argues that logic and ethics are like intertwined.
Right.
We can't make sound ethical decisions without clear logical reasoning.
Right. And we have to be aware of those biases and fallacies.
Yeah.
We can kind of cloud our judgment.
That can cloud our judgment, especially when we're dealing with these powerful technologies.
It's almost like mind-blowing to think about all of the potential implications.
Yeah.
But Leon's logic doesn't just present like the challenges.
Right.
He offers this like sense of hope and possibility.
Yeah, it does. It emphasizes that we're not just passive observers in this technological revolution.
We're active participants.
Yeah, we have the power to shape the future.
Right.
And logic is one of our most powerful tools.
And by embracing critical thinking, engaging in respectful debate, being willing to challenge our own assumptions, we can make sure that technology is used for good and that it benefits all of humanity.
I agree.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Leon's logic, what's the final takeaway?
Logic is not just a subject you study in school.
Okay.
It's a way of thinking. A way of approaching the world, a way of engaging with these complex issues, and a way of shaping the future.
And it's a skill that's more relevant now than ever.
It is.
As we face all the challenges and opportunities of this rapidly changing world.
I agree.
Well, a huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this amazing exploration of Leon's logic.
It's been fun.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to embrace the power of logical thinking.
Keep those minds sharp.
Keep those minds sharp until next time.
This is DigitView.